Zach. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate. Niggas don't know what to think. Thought I get money, you change. What you thought we was the same? Still stay away from them clones. Niggas better leave me alone. Talking about niggas as though you run with niggas who don't know you. Whoa, I made that zagging when city to city. You niggas not hot in your state. If it was money to get a hit Henny, we get it and never complain. Same go for the gang, and we split it up all the same. I can't really eat, let's stay straight, cause we go way back in the day. My day ones from back in the day, they still hang around me today. You wanna come round us, you can't. I'm rolling up loud, it's great. But mama, she bad but complain, cause I'm too in love with my dreams. And I gotta get on the plane, and go get this money with cash. I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang.
I get the bag with the gang, taking that Zach to the bank. Henny be all in my drink. You niggas is stupid, you think that shit change? You not even hot in your gang. Ain't nothing even hot about your gang. You niggas be lying about same. Be posting them pictures of guns for the fame. Niggas just look at me different now. Say that's your man, but he a clown. Don't fuck around with the fuck arounds. Little nigga, you should cut it out. Me and my niggas take different routes. Punch a bitch nigga all in his mouth. Hold up my nigga, we different now. I need a robber, this is my style. I get a check today, I spent it all tomorrow. I get a bitch today, she probably a foreign model. I get a check today, I spent it all tomorrow. I'm with my gang today, tomorrow never promise.
OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang.
Your attention, please. Please do not smoke in the terminal building. Smoking is only permitted in the specified smoking areas.
Zach.
Thank you.
OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go get the cake. Then we link up with the gang, gang, gang. OG, I draw up the plate, and then he go.
I think I'm cute. I know I'm sexy. I've got the look that drives the girls wild. I got the moves that really move them. I send chills up and down their spines. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I make them hot. I make them shiver. Their knees get weak whenever I'm around. They see me walk, they hear me talk. I make them feel like the road ain't real. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. That
Eat your heart out, girl.
mic flip though. hands off the merchandise. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy. I'm just a sexy boy. I'm not your boy toy.
Obama.
Obama. Welcome everybody to another edition of the Pocket Locker Podcast. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, good people, I am in airplane mode. Welcome, folks. We've got a good one lined up for you. It's so good to see everybody here. Hope everybody is having a restful and energetic weekend. I hope everybody's in a good mood. Let us go ahead and get the festivities started with our communion. Y'all already know the drill. Please raise your glasses and hold on to your asses. Through him, with him, in the unity of the flying man. All glory and honor is yours who flied for our sins forever and ever. You may drink. Oh yeah, let's get that whiskey going. Let's get that energy drink. Alrighty, and now for our communion song. This one comes to us courtesy of the Mang Mang Foy Vance, and it's called Where Everybody Knows Your Name. Before I play this song, I just want to say, man, we got a lot going on in this community, and we definitely need to grow our presence and activity level with regard to doing different things beyond counter apologetics. And I'm really grateful to all of the people who come in to gather or are doing different stuff, be it music stuff or gaming stuff. But I have spent the last couple weeks working on a research proposal for the National Science Foundation. And it's a high intensity work time. It reminds me of finishing my dissertation, where they're just endless days from the moment you wake up till really late at night, and you're kind of just working your ass off around the clock. For me, it was very eye-opening being able to have Gather so that I can co-work alongside my friends. I'm trying to imagine what the last couple weeks of my life would have been like if I had to just withdraw from participating and hanging out on YouTube streams as much, not doing my own streams. Like I just would have had to completely kind of fall out of touch with everybody to get my shit done. But because of Gather, I didn't. You know, we grinded this thing out together. And so I want to do more. I want to bring the casino back. I want to do more gaming. I want to do my own music stuff. I want to do my own creative stuff. But I want this community, for those of us that would benefit from it, to understand that in addition to being a place to hang out offline, you know, Gather is really a virtual office, and a lot of us are starting to realize it's really nice to have a virtual office with your friends when you need it. And so I do want to encourage those of you that are kind of dealing with this struggle, right? Where the YouTube bar scene, for lack of a better way to put it, has become an important part of your socialization. Whether you work from home or you work, you know, sort of out in the field or in an office or in a service sector, whatever you got to do, a lot of times, you know, we're just in these different live streams, in these different YouTube channels, just to stay connected to each other throughout the day, throughout the week, whatever it is. And I really want people to understand we actually now have a virtual office for that. Right? You don't gotta do that if you don't want to. You can literally come together and hang out in virtual office with us. I bring all that up to say the proposal that I wrote, let me pull it up for 1 sec, is about Gather. It's about the use of Gather as a transformative online space. Let me go ahead. I'm messing up here. What's probably the best file to show you guys might be the project summary. Hang on a sec. Let me pop open this document. Right. Yeah. Summary. All right. There we go. So here, let me. Only 1 second. All right. So this is the project, right? And it's all about creating a classroom. For those of you who don't know, let me keep moving. We're gonna be a little bit free flowing today. do a little real time work here and let you guys see what's going on here. Hopefully this will help people understand some of the things I'm talking about. All right, so if I jump into, we'll just say cheers because it's actually the example. We're Flying Man University, right? Here's our, academic space and gather, okay? So this is my classroom, right? This is actually my teaching environment. I teach online, right? And I use Gather. I'm up here at the front of the room. There's my spotlight tile. This is how I give my students lectures. And what you'll notice is each of my students at their desk, there's a spotlight tile under their desk. That way when we're having our big discussions, everyone can see and hear each other. He says press X to use Avita Ed. So I pull that up, and this is our digital evolution education software. Can drop an ancestor here, go ahead and boom, I'm running an evolution experiment. And if you notice, I still have my camera here. I still have Gather in the chat. I still have the chat over here. So this is a very innovative online education environment. What I've done is I've integrated Avita Ed, which is our sort of virtual lab software, into Gather, where I've created a virtual classroom, right? And this is, my students love doing this because it's so much more fun to use Gather than it is to use Zoom. They can head over here. If you head here and I press X, notice this is called the Pomodoro timer. It's so that when you're working, you can, hey, I need to focus. You start your timer, and this counts down, and you work for 25 minutes. And then when that's over, you take a short break, chill for 5 minutes. That's over. You're back to a work period. Take a short break. Back to a work period. Take a short break. And then the way most people do it is after your fourth round, short work period, then you go to a longer break. Now you can configure these. I tend to work in 25-5 cycles, but sometimes I work also in 55-minute cycles. Like throughout most of the proposal writing, I had to work with like 55-minute work sessions and then 5-minute breaks. Why am I showing you guys all this? Because these are real productivity tools, right? And I'm trying to show you, like, when I say we built the virtual office, we built the virtual office, and we're not fucking around. I built some productivity tools into it. Anyway, I bring all this up because I want you guys to understand that I made this project. It's called Cheers, right? You guys knowing the theme of our community. It's called the Community Headquarters for Evolution Education, Research, and Streaming, where everybody knows your name, right? So I'm just gonna go ahead and read you guys this summary. Universities were excited about building global campuses for online distance learning, but COVID-19 forced a sudden shift to remote instruction, exposing challenges and creating virtual learning communities. Replacing classrooms with video conferencing platforms led to issues like Zoom fatigue. Virtual team building applications, like Gather, usually for remote work, can be used to create engaging virtual classrooms. I propose teaching a seminar in evolution called Darwin's Lab, combining a virtual classroom with the evolution education software Avita's Ed's virtual lab to create a unique STEM education environment. The course targets a diverse group, including university undergraduates, community college students, adult learners, and will be streamed live on YouTube for community outreach. The goals of this project include evaluating the course's effectiveness, assessing differences in learning outcomes across different settings, and evaluating the benefits of the virtual classroom environment. Pre and post testing with various quantitative and qualitative assessments will be used. Don't worry about that. The course focuses on creating a deep understanding of evolution and the scientific method while aiming to transform online learning environments using game-like applications to recreate the experience of classroom learning online. All right, intellectual merit. We're gonna skip all that. The main thing I want you guys to see is that my project is based and inspired by our community. It's even named Cheers, and it's all about Gather. And this is just the project summary. The main description of the project is this big, huge 12-page document that I had to write. That's like it's a whole thing. But, I had to put a lot of research into this and all of that. But it was incredibly, it was an incredibly eye-opening experience because I had to do a lot of research into Gather as an educational platform and as an office platform and as a social platform. And I realized that the sort of vibe that we get in Gather, the way we kind of love Gather, and I know you guys are like, y'all are like this weird Gather gang, Waco cult thing. No. This is real. There's research about this, okay? Using these sort of virtual, highly interactive environments absolutely revolutionized online education. Teachers love it, students love it. It's part of the new work culture, right? When the pandemic happened, people went to online work and virtual offices. But even before that, there was a movement that I think of as being related to contemporary co-working. People started to realize, why do my coworkers, or the people I share a workspace with rather, that's a better way to put it. Why do the people I share a workspace with necessarily need to be my coworkers? Right? They don't. Now, a lot of us are not used to this. If I were to work on campus, most of my colleagues and the other people who have offices and that I meet with and deal with and interact with in the university, right, they would be other university employees. Specifically, they'd be, other faculty members in my department, other grad students, other postdocs. But there are a lot of places where people can just rent space in a office building or a professional setting, and they will share that space with other people who, pay their share to support that space, and they will create a co-work environment that, one person's a freelance engineer, another person or two people, are legal partners and they run a small law firm. Maybe there's a couple entrepreneurs in there, maybe a few people that use the space are artists, right? But they share a co-working space and they build community. And so I just want those of you to know that, we take this stuff seriously. And I know there's been a lot of drama this week, but we're also making serious long-term moves to try to sustain this community in a more meaningful way. And I want you all to feel invited to get serious about working in this community. my heart breaks a little bit and a little bit more every time I hear somebody say something like, I got to stop hanging out with you guys on YouTube too much. I'm not getting any work done. Sorry, I've been gone for 3 weeks. I just, hey, man, like I had to actually get some shit done, so I just dipped. I'm not blaming anybody. You didn't do the wrong thing. You did the right thing. And even if you started to co-work with other people, there's a learning curve. It takes a little getting used to. People got to do what they got to do. But it hurts me because we're grown and we love each other and we're close to each other and we like that proximity. And it breaks my heart that people feel like they have to choose between being actively engaged with their friends and their community or being productive in their personal and professional life. Ideally, you wouldn't have to leave your community to get fucking work done, right? This gets into the whole, are you living to work or working to live type situation. So yeah, I just want people to realize that there is really something legit to all this. You know, yeah, Nintendo Waco, okay, cool. You know, we got a little virtual call, great. But those of us that, use this and we do it, we're really realizing the power of this platform. And I just want you guys to understand that co-working is an important part of socializing. It is a form of socialization. And a lot of us check into YouTube and hang out together. And I'm just excited to share with you guys that this is happening. And also share with you guys that like this is how seriously I take this stuff. Like I'm not just out here, streaming and on Gather, and I'm just like, woo, this is fun. Like no, this has been a game changer for us. It's been a game changer with regards to my teaching, a game changer with regards to co-working, a game changer with regards to community building and socialization. And yeah, we're gonna stream things, but I want to do much more to invite people to, join our community in a more meaningful way. Now, there's two sides, there's a flip side to that coin. And that is, there is research that shows us that both content creators and their mods and viewers, because I've been doing, a big part of the research for this project, right, is research on Gather, research on education platforms, but it's also research on YouTube, right, because I've got to justify and make the case, right, like I always say, it's YouTube University. YouTube is the world's largest public educational platform, but it's also one of the world's largest search engines, second only to Google. It started as a video sharing platform, but users co-opted its features to turn it into a social media platform. And now academics have used it to build audiences in collaboration with people like Derek. I actually wrote about Derek in my fucking grant as an example of YouTube University, right? And the type of very real learning community that we're building, y'all. This is a learning community. even more so in a way that, as a university man, puts the university to shame, right? Like our undergrads and grad students, they don't actively in their spare time seek out scholarship and education the way this community does. And then what would you want your community and your students to be doing when they're not learning from scholars, right? You'd want them to have their own discussions, have their own debates, have their own community post, whatever it is, right? Put your learning into action in your community by working through what you learn with your peers. That's what the fuck we're doing on YouTube. But it's kind of all happening haphazardly. And I'm like realizing this, and I'm like, no, there's fucking scholarship here. There's real, right? Y'all saw a little bit of the language there, adult learners, right? That's y'all, right? That the point is to stream this class and say, we're gonna have our undergrads here participating, we're gonna have our adult learners here participating, and we're gonna have the people watching live on YouTube participating. But that's like what Derek is doing, right? Derek does a stream with people, you know, either they've got a course or a book, and Derek's like, hey, go read their book, go take their online class. But now a lot of times he's working with the scholars themselves. They make their courses, they're promoting it, you like the content, you take the course, right? But part of what I realized is, so YouTube's great for all that, but it isn't actually a great educational environment. Definitely not for active learning, right? So these are some of the deep issues that we're dealing with. Think about it, y'all. A lot of y'all love YouTube because you could get a lecture from Aaron Ross. Sorry, I'm looking at an Aaron Ross thumbnail in front of me. Or you could get a lecture from Richard Carrier or Bart Ehrman, right? Gustick Gibbon or whoever. And y'all love that. Oh man, YouTube's great. Look at me, I'm getting a fucking lecture straight from real experts. And I can even interact with them. Right? But I don't know if we gotta know, and I don't expect anybody to know this. I'm letting y'all know about me. I'm never trying to, you know, boast or anything. I'm trying to get y'all to understand who I really am in real life. It's like I'm not just an educator and a researcher. I'm growing as a budding education researcher, right? Let me draw this out for those that understand what I'm saying clearly. It's not just that I do research on evolutionary biology. It's not just that additionally I teach biology. I do research on how people teach and learn biology, right? We call that education research. In particular, what's hot right now is to speak about discipline-based education research. Because the best practices in engineering education are not necessarily the best practices in medical education, which are not necessarily the best practices in evolution education. So there's always so much more knowledge that's coming out broadly about how people learn, but then there's also stuff going on about discipline-specific stuff. Where am I going on with this? Part of what we know, I just want to put that perspective there so people understand the distinction, right? A lot of academics, researchers do research. We also then teach. That's typically in our field. But then some of us do, right, you're drawing the line now, the actual research about the teaching in our fields. Where am I going with this? I say that to say there's a lot of great educational research that we now know lectures are not the best way to learn. Right? Lectures are passive, one-way flow of information from expert to pupil, which often creates passivity in the student. Oh, all I got to do is show up and sit here and try to pay attention and maybe take some notes, remember what I can. Yeah, it's great that people are hungry to learn and they're showing up where there's an opportunity to learn something. But sitting back listening to a lecture isn't a great way to learn. You see the problem? We're doing something fucking amazing with the edutainment and the fact that people use YouTube and social media platforms to voluntarily get educated about that shit. First and foremost, all y'all nerds out there, and yeah, that's every single one of you. Go ahead and give yourselves a round of applause. Because y'all some scholarly motherfuckers. Like y'all some serious fucking students. I don't know if you realize this, but most of y'all are more scholastic than scholars. You think I'm fucking playing? I sound real great when I'm talking about my areas of expertise, but that's the only areas that I sound great in. When the rubber meets the road and the day is done, I'm not going to be reading a whole lot about astrophysics. I'm not going to be studying a whole lot about philosophy. I'm not going to be learning Greek so I can understand more about Near Eastern ancient text. I am not in somebody's channel trying to understand, the redshift and how it applies to Big Bang cosmology. So I'm just trying to draw out what I mean when I say most of y'all are more scholastic than scholars. Most scholars only do the research in the academia we get paid to do. And then when we go home, we become not scholars like everybody else. Y'all out there doing your goddamn jobs, whatever they are, raising your families, taking care of your communities, doing real shit. And then when you get some goddamn time to yourself to finally relax and have some me time or do whatever you do for your own enjoyment, y'all motherfuckers are out here learning all this research and science and philosophy and scholarship. So you really ought to commend yourself and your friends and acknowledge how much this community does to work at learning. Y'all deserve a lot of credit for that. But anyway, I want y'all to understand, man, that this whole cheers thing for us, man, it's just getting started. It's just getting going. It's just growing. I'm so thankful that I don't think I'm gonna get this grant, by the way, y'all. I don't think we're gonna get the grant, but we're gonna do the project anyway. Everybody loves the project. We're just gonna do the project. But I'm very excited that we have this space, that we're growing our community. And I also recognize that there's a mental health toll sometime to being on social media, to being in these YouTube spaces. And it's just so fucking awesome now to be able to unplug from YouTube, kind of turn off all the noise, but not have to unplug from the community. I always say about Gather, we now have a space where you can leave YouTube without leaving the community. But I do hope more and more of you consider joining us in Gather and consider co-working along with us. Because let's talk about the net, let's talk about the positive. I've seen the mountaintop, y'all. The switch that I am pushing for is that your community, your friends, your presence in our community becomes something integral that helps you be productive rather than interferes with your productivity. And even though I was writing about Gather and researching about Gather and trying to make the case for Gather, the very process of doing all of that in Gather was an incredibly powerful experience for me, regardless of the outcome of the proposal or what I was writing about. It's just one of those things where it's like, you just won't know how powerful it really is till you try it. So let's go ahead and we'll get back into our show. We'll start with our communion. But since I wrote this project, and I do want to share more about it with you all, but that's a little preview. And since it is about our community, and since it is about Gather, I want, for those that might be new to all of this, to go through. I used to always give like weekly Discord and Gather tutorials. I need to start doing that again. So real quick, we're going to watch this quick Gather video, and then we'll get into our show. So just for the new folks.
Hi, I used to be like you. After a year of working with my employees over video calls, I realized that something was missing. We missed having a place to work instead of just working from our places. That's how we ended up in a Gather office. Let me show you around. It's easy to share something with anyone in your space, a website, a calendar, a note, or the soundtrack to this video.
Hey Sam, are you gonna be at game night later?
Oh, I'll be there. Running into people like that is what makes interactions feel so much more natural on Gather. I have a 2 p.m. meeting with Jeff, and I love that I can see him making his way over.
Hey, what's this meeting about?
Just showing how a Gather office allows us to feel more present during the workday.
Sure beats video calls.
Hey, while I've got you, can you show us your custom workspace?
Definitely.
I just hit the follow button, and now Jeff is leading the way. This makes it easier to have a conversation while you're moving around. Whoa, is that a moat?
It's a koi pond. Never could have had this at our old office.
That's the beauty of a Gather office. It can look like this, or even this. Choosing your style is as easy as that.
Do you want to join an actual meeting?
Sure. These private spaces are great for meetings. We can have a larger conversation without disturbing anyone else in the office. Looks like Mary is working in another window, so Gather automatically mutes her mic and camera. Let's give her a ring.
Hey Sam, I was just wrapping up this presentation. Check it out.
Wow, it's a great idea. I love it. You know what else I love? Not sitting in traffic, not paying rent, not being limited to hiring people based on location.
All right, thanks,
Bill,
Reese.
where are you working from again?
I'm on a boat.
I love that I can host a company game night on the rooftop. Let me step onto the spotlight tile so everyone can hear this last part. Hi everyone, I just wanted to end the video by letting you all know how much I missed this. The camaraderie, the collaboration, the sense of community. I realized that I missed the company of my company. And if you don't have a Gather office yet, come see what you're missing. We'll have you in your own space in 30 seconds when you visit gather.town.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And as you can see, as you should have already suspected, wait a second. Here we go. We are always in Gather, right? And so right now, here we are. We're in our Pinochle Lounge. We're on our Saturday Night Live stage. Even though it was Saturday afternoon, I just wanted to use it. Oh, I gotta refresh this my other camera real fast. Uh-oh. Ruh-roh. Oh, I didn't turn the camera back on. All right, hang on a sec. Oh, I unplugged it so I could do my... Oh, never mind. I just need to switch cameras. My bad, gang. All right. So, look, let me show you guys how to do this. The easiest way for me to do this is to pop in real quick as a guest, right? So as a guest, I won't have anything going on here. Let me go and grab the link just so I can show you guys how to do this. So, close all this. So I'm a guest, so this way there's no issues of my account. So there's a link to our Gather. It is in the description. All you're gonna do is, you don't even actually have to sign in. So check this out. There is a desktop application. I recommend using it. It's really, really nice, but you don't have to worry about this. But you can go ahead and download the application. But the first time, don't worry about it. It's going to ask for your video and your microphone permission. You don't actually have to grant it. The beauty of Gather is it does allow us all to see and hear each other. If you know, and I encourage people to do so if you're comfortable, but if not, you don't have to. Either way, just hit request permissions. You can hit allow or whatever. If you're not, if you're going to, I'll just hit allow, I don't care. If you're going to use them, you select your microphone here, you select your speaker. I could, for instance, just use 7.8 and 7.8. And you would select your camera. I don't know if it's gonna, maybe let me use my USB live camera, let's see. Boom, all right, there's my, I have a whole bunch of cameras. There's my other camera. All right, then you put in your name, you say my name's Jay. There is an avatar. It automatically creates an avatar for you, so you can just go with that, but you can go ahead and change your avatar. You don't have to make it look like you, of course, but you can do whatever you want with your avatar. I always tell people you should change something about your avatar because you want to get comfortable with, because sometimes we do fun activities and you may want to put on a certain outfit or something. Maybe like we do a fancy dinner event and you may want to get dressed up, put on a little nice formal outfit for the event, finish editing, join, boom, you're in the cafe, right? And this is sort of our lounge area. You can hang out. And yeah, that's what our Gather looks like. That's usually where we do shows. I'll show you guys real quick what the actual office looks like. Go over the little bridge. And this is our office. We've got meeting rooms. We usually use this big room for everybody to work together in the captain's room. This is just a different version of a Pomodoro timer, like the one I showed you guys earlier. Got the writing room. We've got games built in. Most of us that are members, we actually have our own little cubicles. So you see JFMM's desk. So everybody's got kind of their own little private area. You can see people customize them. This is Melody's desk. This is Wayne's desk. This is AR's desk. So I just want to show you guys this. This is what we're up to. I know a lot of people hear us talking about it. They've heard the rumors. They hear everybody, the buzzing. Yo, Jay's starting a Waco cult on the internet, and they're all gonna drink the Kool-Aid, put purple sheets over their heads, and teleport to space in their Pumas. Whatever you do, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Like, y'all, just, it ain't that serious. It ain't that serious. A lot of y'all use your little Facebook group chats. A lot of you hang out in your little clubhouses, or you hang out on Discord. We built a legit virtual office. Oh yeah, the cheers sign, that's our speakeasy. Yeah, so cheers, it's the speakeasy. You can come in here, right? Because that's the office, right? So we can come in here and hang out. Sometimes we do shows from here, or we all hang out over here. But yeah, the speakeasy is really, really fun. We've got game rooms. I'll give you guys a tour of the compound some other time. There's a lot. We've created a whole metaverse. There's literally a whole virtual metaverse for them. But I just wanted to share that with you guys. Yeah, here's where we're at now. Another thing that's really cool about Gather, and I'll show you guys this real quick because this is a reason to download the app, right? I'm currently using the actual Gather application, but did you guys catch that? Right? Watch this. I'm looking at Gather, right? We built our Saturday Night Live stage. I've got UC Love in here with me, and Carrie Ann, and look at the trees. Right, I've got the side chat over here, just very much like Zoom, right? Here's the grid view. This is just like Zoom, for those of you that are used to using Zoom. But check this out. When I go to work, let's say I'm working on a document, like this document. Do you guys notice this? This is called mini mode. Yeah, I know that looks subtle to you, but what you see right here is mind-blowing. Hang on a sec, my camera's fucked up. It's a little more height on that one or something. Oh, I see what happened. This camera got knocked back. All right, there we go. Woo! All right, so why is this so important? All right. Remember when I went into my classroom, the thing I showed you. Hang on, I gotta pull that back up because people won't understand the power of mini mode unless I show you the power of mini mode. Give me one sec, gang. I'll show. Also, y'all can see once you get used to using Gather, like I'm so fast with it. Like I'm just so used to how all this works. I can pop in and out of the Gatherverse easy. Ooh, wait till I show y'all Cowork. I'm gonna show you this Cowork server in a little bit, probably in another stream. But that's gonna be dope. All right, check this out, y'all. Oh, submit. I use what are you talking about? All right, so that's another feature, right? Gather allows spaces to be password protected, so it's actually really nice because the password protection can make the spaces private. All right, check this out, y'all. Remember how I showed you that this is really important? Because by integrating Avita Ed into Gather, my students can work in Avita Ed, right? They can do their lab work, but they can still see each other. They can still see their cameras up here, and they can still chat with each other. They can still see the chat. This is really important. Hey, Carrie Ann.
Just wanted to give a demonstration. Let them see.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Carrie Ann. Exactly.
Yeah, no problem.
And so that's really great. And this is what's transformative about it, because if we didn't do it this way, guys, my students would have to switch tabs. They'd have to go over here. They'd have to go to Avita Ed, right? And now they can't see each other, and there is no chat. So this is a lot less interactive, right? That's the power of this mini mode. Like, you can't integrate Gather into your work environment. But what happens with the mini mode is, if I have Gather pulled up like this, I can see all the windows, I can talk to Carrie Ann, I can use the chat. But now if I pull up my work document, you guys see it now? Mini mode makes it like Gather is integrated into everything. So now when I'm actually writing and I'm actually coding, I can still see and hear everybody. And it's still very interactive. If Stephanie is up line and me and Stephanie are having a conversation, it's just like Stephanie sitting across the table from me. I can see and hear her, but I can keep working, right? And if that gets in the way, I can move it. I can move it up here. I can move it down here. Carrie Ann, send the message in the chat real quick.
All right. I also wanted to mention Sean.
Is Sean here? Hey, Sean.
No, he's doing that festival. But yesterday he was setting up for the festival in his hometown.
Ah, yes, he was. All right, so y'all see
And the whole time he was in here with us, chatting it up and listening to whatever we were listening to. And all of us were doing our own work, our own thing.
Absolutely.
But we do it together.
Absolutely. So. And Stephanie's making sales and stuff. But
yeah,
guys,
she's sewing back there talking with us. I love it. I love it. We get to watch her make them too. That's amazing.
So yeah, gang, as you can see, this is really nice because the messages pop up, you can see the cameras, and you can keep working. So I wanted y'all to show y'all, man, we're not playing around. This isn't a joke. This isn't no lightweight stuff. This is real productivity tools for grown folks who are trying to have some community with their friends, have some socialization and presence throughout the day, but still be able to get stuff done. I want you to, whatever the project is, your work, your family responsibilities, going back to school, learning a new hobby, learning a new game. I want this community to be the support and the reason you succeed, not an obstacle to your personal success. And I really do hope people see that that's what we're committed to here. Now, why did we do all that right now? Because it's been a while, and I wanted us to listen to our theme song, our communion song, with just a little bit more understanding now about how we are moving this Cheers thing forward, right? And I hope y'all see now that when we talk about this Cheers thing, this where everybody knows your name thing, that's what we're about. And I will literally put that shit in my professional development grants. Like, yo, I'm about this Gather life. Either give me some funding for this shit or get the hell up out my way, because that's what we're about. So this song, this community has come to mean so much to me. And yeah, we did an hour intro to the show today. Who cares? I'm so happy to see everybody here. Let's go ahead and get into our communion song. Cheers, everybody.
Dublin, and he's going to play us out. Foy, you're going to play what to finish us up?
Do you know what? I don't know the name of this song, actually, but I know the song, and so will you.
Oh, I look forward to this. Foy Bands, take it away.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see troubles are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name. Well, all those
All right, let's give out
nights
some
you got
pocket
no
change.
and the check is in
Also,
the mail.
smash that like button, gang.
And your little angel hung the collared by its tail. Your third fiance didn't show. Well, sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name.
All right, Captain's desk was first.
And you're always glad they came. You wanna be where you can see troubles are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
I got YouTube Punk second, so good to see
Well,
you.
you get out of bed and the coffee's dead. The morning isn't looking bright. You shrink right off to your
And look at the
blind.
trees,
Doesn't
it's the-
even right. Your girlfriend says she's not a girl. Be glad there's one place in the world where everybody knows your name. And they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see troubles are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name. You wanna be where you can see troubles are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Shout out to the
Boy, fans. Most common word coming in by text, boy, is goosebumps. Believe it or not, we've had that repeatedly across the whole series. If you want to see Foy Vance's cheeky grin when he sang the line, "When you find your girlfriend is a guy,"
Oh man, fun song, man. Yeah, Bree. I be thinking about that shit when I hear that. I be like, it all depends on your perspective about how you respond to those things. But yeah, man, I love the way that song speaks to so many things we're dealing with. Of course, there's always a tone about these things that was very different, but love that theme song. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate everybody for being here. Bree, thank you so much. I just gotta say publicly, you've been really, really wonderful for us the last couple weeks, and we really appreciate you. And so glad to have your support. Let's go ahead and get into this show, gang. The video we're going to be talking about today comes to us from Carrie Ann Chrysler, who shared this video with me, and I think it's really good. And I think that there is what the video is about, and there's also what am I trying to think about, and what would I like, my audience to think about as they watch the video. So the conversation, the video is going to be about sort of extremist violence and how it compares when it's brought to bear by the left versus the right. And I think that's, it's awesome in its own right, and it's a great video. But I think it's important to think about violence and violence, right? In other words, literal, actual violence and air quotes violence, right? Because the broader picture would, to me, be more all-encompassing. You would think about direct violence political violence. That's what we're going to be talking about, political violence. But you might also think about something like political aggression or violent language or weaponized rhetoric, right? There's sort of the broader nature of violence, if you will, and this is going to be focused kind of on, you know, violence per se, for lack of a better way to put it. But I think it'd be a bit of a disservice, especially to our communities, if we just sat back, popped some popcorn, right, and thought about the ways extremist violence manifests out there, right, outside of our homes, in this incident or that historically. Like, no, let's think about how politically or socially motivated aggression might actually be manifesting in our own lives, in our own community, and how this conversation might be useful to bring some perspective to how we think about what's going on in our lives and in our spaces, not just what we see on TV. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and jump into this. All right, gang, let's get into this shit. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Let's roll.
Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein to step down.
Sorry, gang, I actually hit the next thing. It's wrong video. Here we go. Also, I don't do a lot of promoting other channels or whatever. Like, by that I mean I don't tend to like drop the links or push the videos I'm reviewing, right? There are links in the descriptions for various co-hosts and mods. Please check those out. If you want to support the gang and my friends. But anyway, I did notice that the channel that this is coming from, Eccentric Rants, has 20 subscribers. It's a new channel. It's only been around a little while. How Carrie Ann finds all these gems, I don't know. I don't know her secret army of minions. And how she finds people like out the gate. You know, people just, Carrie Ann be finding them and they just get, I don't know, Carrie Ann be deep scouring YouTube. She's on the dark web of the dark web.
I'm just really good at search engines.
Oh, that helps explain some of this.
I learned how to research in the 90s. So.
Got it. Yes, right, because you had to know, right? This.
Yeah, you had to know the computer and you had the library.
Right,
I mean,
whether you put the quotes in, this minus that. Yeah,
I'm lucky. I think we're lucky.
Yeah, they taught it right because we had to learn the whole process. Yeah, it's a great point. But look, y'all, Eccentric Rants, man, go over, give it a sub. I haven't seen a ton of their stuff. I can't tell you about the person. You know how scary YouTube is now, though. It's always scary to promote somebody because you don't know what they're going to pop up and say or do tomorrow. And then you be like, I want nothing to do with it. You want nothing to do with that. But no, this video's good, man. 20 subs, man. That's wrong, y'all. Eccentric Rants, man. Go over there and let's at least give this channel. They're small right now, right? So if it turned out that they're crazy, well, they ain't really setting the world on fire. But I think this video is good. I say we give this channel some attention, and they could be off to doing some really great stuff. Let's get into this. But I do think after seeing this, if you don't already, after seeing this, I think a lot of people will think this channel's at least worth the sub right now, for sure. Let's get it.
Just because I'm discussing violence and have a bias on it does not mean I condone it. This video's content about violence is for educational purposes. It is not meant to be looked at as a means to further violence. There seems to be a common misconception that just because you use violence, your cause is suddenly less noble, that if you aren't pulling a Martin Luther King Jr. or a Gandhi, why bother? And while I could go over why such
Also, this is a great point. Y'all already know it's not a super long video, so I kind of like that because we could pause the tape a little bit more and get into shit. But I want to talk about pulling a Martin Luther King because it's very important to me. Like, I actually struggle with Martin Luther King. I don't know how other black people feel about that, but there's of course most of the time when I'm like, MLK was on point, love everything he had to say. Oh, what a great American civil rights leader. There's other times I hear shit Martin Luther King said, and I've read a lot of stuff, especially growing up, that now that I look back on it, I'll be like, yeah, that's the problem with having preachers as civil rights leaders, right? Right? But everybody's got their own life history and story, and that's part of his. But so often his example is kind of misused, or his tone and his what he was really getting at is kind of taken slightly in a contorted way. And I see this happen, and I've seen it happen even recently, but it has nothing to do with that. I've actually been talking about this example, like Daryl Davis. Daryl Davis is the guy who's a black guy. He's a black musician and actor. He's actually did a small little cameo in The Wire. And he is friends with leaders of the KKK. Matter of fact, I might do another Daryl Davis video. That might be a good one to do. It kind of got me wanting to do that. But he's become friends with some Klan leaders. There's been documentaries about his relationship with them. And as a lot of them come out, or not a lot of them, but as some of them have come out of the Klan, they've like sent him their robes and all of this type of stuff. And he gives TED Talks. Most people know him from his TED Talk and other stuff. And he's always making this point of when enemies are discussing, they're not fighting. And he's certainly an example of a person who is going about active peacemaking across the divide. However, it's always super important to understand the full picture, the full context as best you can, and to not misuse someone as an example in a way that actually is a contradiction to their mission and message. And this becomes, and you can always tell by who are the voices amplifying the message in the room. So let's take a great MLK as an example. A lot of y'all have noticed that right-wingers love to quote MLK. It becomes insightful or illustrative that in some sense, these days, the right-wing conservatives quote Martin Luther King Jr. more often than goddamn progressives do. Now, I am not for a second, minute, hour, nor day saying that that means Martin Luther King Jr. was not progressive. But we have to recognize limitations, shortcomings, areas of growth and improvement, vulnerabilities in our defense that are exposed when some of what we do is weaponized against us. And you see this with MLK because the right quotes him, like I said, sometimes more than progressives do. And it's always people should be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Their content of their character, not the color of their skin. The content of their character, not the color of their skin. Yada, yada, yada. And so it's incredibly frustrating. And so when people do that, you got to put the pause on that and say, yeah, that man did that in a way that was to fight for equality, to fight for civil rights, to fight for the plight of black people. If your narrow ass quotes Martin Luther King Jr. as a racist dog whistle, you don't understand Martin Luther King Jr. It can never be forgotten that whatever you think of whatever he said it in the context of fighting for the rights of black people. So to take his words and say, well, people should be judged on the content of their character, not the color of their skin, ergo, white people should not be made to feel guilty about American history, ergo, remove critical race theory from the curriculum and ban books that make white people feel bad about American history. And you're gonna sit around and fucking act like come on, y'all. So be careful how the other side uses a particular example. Now, how does that tie back to Daryl Davis? And again, I'm gonna have to bring it right back on to MLK, but don't get it. Your boy Pocket Locker got you, gang. I now notice that the example of Daryl Davis, the black guy who's friends with the KKK member, is an example celebrated more by the right than it is by the left, right? Yeah, I see where I'm going with this. And now we got to sit back and ask ourselves why. Because rather than honestly representing Daryl Davis's story, Daryl Davis's struggle, Daryl Davis's mission, Daryl Davis's message, they essentially quote mine Daryl Davis's TED Talk to the part where he says where two enemies are sitting down and talking, they're not fighting. Ergo, everybody just oblige my fucking white ignorance, sit down and fucking talk to me. Right? What they're doing is they're trying to use Daryl Davis as an example against direct action, against confrontation, against addressing inequities and inequalities, rather than realize that that was the fucking technique he used to do that. While not being honest about the powerlessness that forced him to do it in the first place. Daryl Davis didn't wake up one morning and say, somebody just knocked me upside my head for being a black child. I really, I just find this whole racism thing to be fantastically interesting. Let me reach out to somebody who quote unquote thinks differently than I do, just so I can hear them out. Sure, that's exactly what he did. And that's exactly what he'll tell you he did. But if that is all you are going to quote to me, instead of what he told you is the reason he does it and why he does it and where all this comes from, and then ignore the fact about the results and how what he was doing was work that produced the results and the results it produced, you're just an asshole. Daryl Davis, as a child, an elementary school child, was walking in a parade in a situation very similar to me, the only black child in a group of whatever. And he was attacked. As I remember it, if I remember it correctly, people were throwing things at him, shouting names at him, a fucking child. And he didn't understand what was happening. That's how he became aware as a child about the realities of racism. Something a lot of y'all as grown-ass people haven't learned anything about yet, for some reason. And out of a sense of powerlessness, out of a sense of fear, out of a sense to, in essence, a fight for his life, he needed to confront the source of the fight against him. But he already knew the powerfulness of what he was up against. He already understood from a child the overwhelming and overbearing violence that had already been shown by the quote-unquote other side. So for these people to sit around and then use these type of examples of, oh no, you should just tolerate anybody who says anything because Daryl Davis is willing to go hang out with the KKK members. Yeah, to fight for his fucking life after being fucking attacked, you ignorant. Like, come on, y'all. You cannot play the game it is totally disingenuous. Now, how does this tie back to MLK and where we're going with this video? I'm gonna pull something up for y'all. This is from Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail. He says, I must make two honest confessions to you, my Christian and Jewish brothers. First, I must confess, let me put this on the screen in case people want to read along. First, we're here. First, I must confess that over the past few years, I have been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I've almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride toward freedom is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klaner, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to quote-unquote order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes, this is a key word, paternalistically believes that he can set the timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a, quote, more convenient season. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Lukewarm acceptance is much more bewildering than outright rejection. I want to thank my girl Stephanie, who is pushing this on us. And anytime white moderates slip up, Stephanie will pull this paragraph and read it to us and gather. Stephanie does not care. If you need this passage read to you 3 times a day, Stephanie will gladly read this to you 3 times a motherfucking day until you get it. So shout out to the lovely Ms. Helms. But I want to read the next 2 as well. I had hoped the white moderate would understand that law and order exists for the purpose of establishing justice, and that when they fail in this purpose, they become the dangerously structured dams that block the flow of social progress. I had hoped that the white moderate would understand that the present tension in the South is a necessary phase of the transition from an obnoxious negative peace in which the Negro passively accepted his unjust plight to a substantive and positive peace in which all men will respect the dignity and worth of human personality. Actually, we who engage in nonviolent direct action are not the creators of tension. We merely bring to the surface the hidden tension that is already alive. We bring it out in the open where it can be seen and dealt with, like a boil that can never be cured so long as it is covered up, but must be opened with all its ugliness to the natural medicines of air and light. Injustice must be exposed with all the tension its exposure creates to the light of human consciousness and the air of national opinion before it can be cured. Again, thanks to Steph for reading that part to us on the regular as well. I want to read this last part because it touches on violence. In your statement, you assert that our actions, even though peaceful, must be condemned because they precipitate violence. But is this a logical assertion? Isn't this like condemning a robbed man because his possession of money precipitated the evil act of robbery? Isn't this like condemning Socrates because his unswerving commitment to truth and his philosophical inquiries precipitated the act by the misguided populace in which they made him drink hemlock? Isn't this like condemning Jesus because his unique God consciousness and never ceasing devotion to God's will precipitated the evil act of crucifixion? We must come to see that, as the federal courts have consistently affirmed, it is wrong to urge an individual to cease his efforts to gain his basic constitutional rights because the quest may precipitate violence. Society may protect the robbed and punish the robber. I had also hoped that white moderate will reject the myth concerning time in relation to the struggle for freedom. I have just received a letter from a white brother in Texas. He writes, all Christians know that the colored people will receive equal rights eventually, but it is possible that you are in too great a religious hurry. It has taken Christianity almost 2,000 years to accomplish what it has. The teachings of Christ take time to come to earth. Such an attitude stems from a tragic misconception of time, from the strangely irrational notion that there is something in the very flow of time that will inevitably cure all ills. Actually, time itself is neutral. It can be used either destructively or constructively. More and more, I feel that the people of ill will have used time much more effectively than have the people of goodwill. We will have to repent in this generation, not merely for the hateful words and actions of the bad people, but for the appalling silence of the good people. Human progress never rolls in on wheels of inevitability. It comes through the tireless efforts of men willing to be co-workers with God, and without this hard work, time itself becomes an ally of the forces of societal stagnation. We must use time creatively, in the knowledge that the time is always ripe to do right. Now is the time to make real the promise of democracy, and transform our pending national elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. Now is the time to lift our national policy from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of human dignity. Now, as I'm sure y'all could tell, you now know what I'm talking about when I say sometimes my feeling about Martin Luther King is this is the problem of making pastors or civil rights leaders. But setting aside his particular choice of religious language and our clear disagreements about the merits of Christian theology, I hope y'all see the issue here. And the reason I paused this video is because I want to make this very clear, because it does feed into right-wing talking points. When people try to say MLK this, MLK that, they often use MLK, what? As an example of passivity, right? He was about quote unquote nonviolent resistance. Yeah. As the primary means to an end, but it was nonviolent direct action, not nonviolent sit on your ass and watch racism continue. And he was also clearly aware that sometimes nonviolent resistance as a form of direct action was going to lead to violence. But in his wisdom at the time, predating the social norm of said language, he recognized the victim blaming and said, you cannot blame the victim. And this is what I mean about people misrepresenting his example. He was certainly not saying, oh, yeah, people should judge by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, get rid of all the fucking CRT books. He was saying, no, you want to be judged by the content of your character, not the color of your skin? Read the goddamn CRT book, and then let's see what you do afterwards. People act like Daryl Davis just decided to show up at a KKK rally one day, started drinking Kool-Aid and eating hot dogs with the fucking boys, and the next thing he knows, fucking people were sending him Klan robes in the mail. He was acting out of a desperate sense of self-defense, recognizing that he was certainly up against a violent, lethal force that had already demonstrated it was willing to act extremely violent towards him as a fucking kid. So don't you dare fix your white fucking mouth to tell us that that's an example of how we should just sit down and shut the fuck up when bigots want the floor. He was seeking an active peace through nonviolent, direct action. And being peaceful and cooperative and all that because he knew he had to be as he went about doing the fucking work A lot of people think, oh, I let a bigot show up and say what he wanted to say. I let a fucking marginalized person show up and say what they wanted to say. Cool, I've done my job. I make sure they shake hands at the end and I call it a day. That's not what's going on here, folks. All right, I just wanted to bring that clarity to why it's so unacceptable when people try to bring up that MLK, Daryl Davis type BS. Do not fall for it.
Nonviolent forms of protest are ineffective, that is for another video. In this video, however, I'm going over political violence, specifically the difference between left and violence, specifically the difference to be looked at as a means to further violence. There seems to be a common misconception that just because you use violence, your cause is suddenly less noble.
Thank you, Stephanie.
That if you aren't pulling a Martin Luther King Jr. or a Gandhi, why bother? And while I could go over why such nonviolent forms of protest are ineffective, that is for another video. In this video, however, I'm going over political violence, specifically the difference between left and right-wing extremist violence. First of all, violence will always be part of politics, because it's not about whether or not you—
It is sad stuff that we overlook how unpopular Martin Luther King was during his lifetime, and we also overlook how Beatlemania ain't got shit on Hitler mania. You think girls went crazy for the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, or B2K? You better watch a World War II documentary tonight. You ain't never seen no celebrity like Hitler had.
We do that here in Gather too, guys.
We do that too in Gather. We do that too in Gather.
Yeah.
We ain't got to worry about no copyright. We be watching pay-per-views. We be watching HBO. We be watching documentaries. We hate watching YouTube. But look, seriously, that needs to be acknowledged, y'all, because that is really being an ally. It's coming to recognize it isn't just MLK good, thumbs up, Hitler bad, thumbs down. It's understand marginalized people live in a world where Hitler became the most famous person on the planet and had people climbing up light poles to toss their bras at him. And Martin Luther King was hated every day of his life till they killed him for it. That's history.
Use violence, but instead who you permit to use it. For an authoritarian, this might be the police or the state. For anarchists, this would be protesters, militias, and the like. No matter if it's consciously or not, yours and everyone else's politics permit the use of violence to some group or peoples that are preferred. The details of political violence can vary based on political affiliation. Right-wing extremist violence goes after groups of people whom have characteristics that cannot be changed. This can include LGBTQ people, ethnic minorities, and women. It should be said that the reason such people are targeted is because of fascism. Characteristically, fascism will firstly target non-whites. Some examples of this targeting of non-whites includes the Trail of Tears, putting Japanese Americans and Mexican asylum seekers in concentration camps, and the indiscriminate incarceration of people of color. After such non-white specific violence, fascists then move on to LGBTQ+ people. The Lavender Scare and shaming of homosexuals under Nazi Germany are examples of this. While the toll of right-wing violence is more than I can go over in this video, the more general metric I want to look at—
Stephanie, they mentioned the Lavender Scare. I don't know if you want to hop in Gather and.
I'm in Gather.
Boom, there it is. So yeah, Steph, do you want to say more about that?
The Lavender Scare. The Lavender Scare was a feature of McCarthyism. I'm sorry, Jay. I'm recovering. From
I know you're a bit groggy.
I'm recovering from spending a great deal of time working on a very troublesome issue that circles around what you're presenting today. First of all, before we get too far away from Dr. King,
sure.
I want to point out, in the context of something that might be still on people's minds right now, that Dr. King was assassinated by a right-wing proto-fascist in the midst of a protest for economic justice. Months after Dr. King came out against the Vietnam War and turned his focus to exactly that, racism in the context of economic justice. I'd also like to point out that George Lincoln Rockwell, who was the head of the American Nazi Party at the time of his assassination, made remarks every time he mentioned Martin Luther King's name. He didn't use the word king. He used the word coon.
Martin Luther Coon every time.
So the right wingers then, and their descendants today, are very well aware of the association with coon and racist bigotry.
Absolutely.
So I think in the context of remembering when those people have their day off in February, celebrating the birthday
Preach.
of Dr. Martin Luther King.
That's right.
They should remember that one of their great friends called him Martin Luther Coon every single freaking time.
Every single freaking time.
And I think one of the things around this whole issue, we're talking about white moderates. We're also talking about the amnesia of history. That how is it possible that a 69-year-old woman is the person who has to remind people of that history? How is that even possible? The amount of stuff that people have forgotten is something beyond me. And now we get to the lavender scare. The lavender scare was a part of the same goddamn thing.
Stephanie, I got one more real quick before we leave that topic. That man's name is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We talked about academic misogyny. I brought it up last night on Gur's stream. Academic racism. And the idea of taking somebody with a PhD, irrespective of what you think, especially a black scholar, knowing that black scholars are dealing with academic racism and imposter syndrome every goddamn day of our lives, gaslighting us by telling us we're stupid or we don't deserve it, or, you know, we got them on handout grants for sympathy, diversity. This is all the stuff I'm dealing with, you know, in all of this stuff lately, Stephanie, and it's been absolutely disgusting, right? And then the flip side is this. I got one group telling us, y'all stupid as shit, y'all ain't really earned yours, I don't take you seriously as an academic, da-da-da-da. Then I got the other side of the same people saying what? Well, you don't really deal with racism, do you? Because you have a PhD. Right? Aren't you part of the 1%? You're part of this elitist 1%er now? Yeah, my black ass is a 1%er because I managed to get a doctorate. Like, I cannot tell y'all how infuriating that is. And so please remind yourself, anytime somebody sits and fixes their face, especially one of your friends fixes their face, to tell you about how Jay Bundy is not affected by racism because he got a good PhD and he has a fancy mixer in his studio, yes, you have my permission to tell them to kiss my black ass on my behalf. Now, Steph, I want to set you up for this lavender scare thing, if you don't mind me just adding this real quickly. Part of the education I need people to come out with from this entire thing is, like you said, Steph, there's a history there. Now, I get that most people don't understand the history of the dog whistles because it requires a nuanced level and a motivation. You got some history to it. So people understand this. There's two things, and we talked about this last night, and it was a really important point. I didn't even get to bring it up on Gur's stream. The only people who recognize the dog whistles are the marginalized people and the antagonizer. The dog whistle doesn't work if there's no history to it, right? Or else people won't know what it's an allusion to, or they won't know what it's a reference to. They won't know what it's getting at. However, the very nature of making it a dog whistle means it has to slip beneath the detection of the quote unquote majority population, which just means white cis people who don't fucking know any better, right? And that's important because a big part of what got lost in this whole sauce was a bunch of would-be allies sitting around going, well, I'm not sure if I can really call this out as a problem prejudicially because I personally don't know the history of this particular problematic thing. And I just want us to reinforce that that is how dog whistling works. And so you won't know what the dog whistle looks like until a person marginalized by it says, let me explain this dog whistle to you so you understand. You should not expect yourself to have already known that history. And the reason I thought that was a great segue, Steph, to talking about the lavender scare was because you brought up like the red pill as an example for me. I hear red pill, like most people, I think of the Matrix. I see a bunch of people walking around talking about take the blue pill, red pill. I just go, cool, y'all are using some Matrix role play, cosplay thing. Cool. You could say red pill in front of me all day long, and that there's a subtext to all this that is relevant to trans people would just be flying over my head every single fucking time. And I thought that that was a good red pill segue to you explaining the lavender scare for those of us that sounds like a nightmare at a Bed Bath & Beyond. We're waiting for Steph, but go ahead, take your time. Dwayne, did you want to add something real quick?
In a moment. I was waiting on Steph.
Okay.
Sorry.
Steph, you still there? Oh, Steph's sound cut out. Okay. I don't know if Steph needs to refresh or maybe. All right, so Steph popped out. Steph's going to pop back in. And if that doesn't settle it, I'll refresh and then we'll know it's on mine. Go ahead, Wayne, if you wanted to say something.
I'm good for the moment.
Okay. Appreciate you, man. Wayne, I want to read your comments and I want to bring up a couple of things you've said while they're on my mind. So Wayne said MLK was murdered while uniting sanitation unions. Soon as he made moves to equalize labor pay, he was fucking murdered by the U.S. government. Marching alone does nothing. Speeches do little. Demand higher wages. You can be fired if you ask for a raise alone. You cannot be fired if two people ask for a raise at the same time. Damn. Live and fight for the equality MLK died for. Unionize, demand higher wages, be anti-war. Now, here's something I've been thinking about, Wayne. This is the real hit for our allies. We need to talk about the money. You always say you want to talk about oppression. Everything's about the paycheck. And what a lot of people are realizing is equality doesn't mean you have black coworkers, there's a black manager in the company, you don't use the N-word, and now we're good to go. No, this requires active work to address the institutional issues, which require perpetual vigilance and re-education. Oh, does that sound like hard work, people? Too fucking bad. Welcome to racism. It sucked for us every day since we were children. All right? And it's all about the paycheck. And it's funny how allyship always stops short of economic injustice. You got a whole lot of white folks. Oh, I'm all about equality for black people. I'm all about civil rights. I never use the N-word. Oh, Jay just taught me that raccoon's a racist dog whistle. Don't come at me with no raccoon. Yeah, but I reparations. I don't. What land redistribution? What stopping redlining? What giving black people fair mortgage? Like y'all are not even ready to start having the conversation.
Oh,
right.
I remember
Wayne?
what I was going to say.
Go
right.
ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Check this. Like, why are y'all still judging the atheist community by Christian standards? Why do you have to wait and figure out what's in a motherfucker's heart before you decide how to treat him based on the actions he showed? I don't understand that shit. That's Christian garbage, and I thought you were atheists.
Yes.
Oh man.
I was just gonna say quickly, racism, transphobes, all of this stuff, bigotry is not about hearts and minds. Go ahead, Steph. Welcome back.
Hey, Steph. Ah, dang, in and out.
We heard it for a sec. Yeah. Are you there, Steph?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, we can hear you.
I'm just you caught me in the middle of stuff. But Wayne, absolutely right. Absolutely right. We're not talking about hearts and minds. We're talking about what happened. We're talking about what actually fucking happened. You know? And you sit there and say, well, you know, hand wave, well, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's like, well, yeah, but this is a fact, okay? This is what people are seeing.
Right. It's not about what's in their hearts.
Right. If a person comes at me and swings at my face, I'm not going to sit there and decide what's in their heart. I'm going to defend myself. And online, if a person comes at me and tells me that I'm not a human by their avatar or by the jokes that they're saying, I'm not going to sit there and wait to figure out what's in their heart, especially if it's not fun. If it's terrible, it's not gonna land right. So get better jokes if you want to be funny around marginalized people. I don't know.
Right. And a lot of people who think their hearts and minds were in the right place attended lynchings on Sunday mornings after church, right? Right. They were just picnicking, Wayne. There's no real genuine animosity towards black people in the hearts. They're just, you know, hanging out with fried chicken and watermelon and, you know, enjoying the shouting and all of this. So we're all on the same page about that, and I appreciate you speaking out about that. Steph, I don't know if you can hear me, but yeah,
I can.
I did want to let you tell us about that whole lavender scare thing, because again, it's a perfect example of stuff a lot of us just don't even recognize the terms.
Well, you know, I was about to go from memory, but I pulled up. I'm on my iPad, so it's figure things out. But I pulled up the wiki on the lavender scare, which is it comports with my memory. And this is actually an intro to a book called The Lavender Scare, a book by David K. Johnson. Anyway, the Lavender Scare was a moral panic about homosexual people in the United States government.
Yeah, I don't know. We're having an issue again with Steph's audio. Freaking weird, man.
Jay?
No, yeah, go ahead.
Jay, what I will do is I'm in the office now. I will come back on my computer. And you carry on. You guys have plenty to talk about without talking about the poor queers.
Steph, I have a request. Please take your time. We'll be here.
All right. Bye.
All right. All right.
For those that don't know, Steph lives near the North Pole, so you know the signal's not great. She's way out there in the sticks near Santa Claus.
I'm lying. He's lying. Stephanie lives and gather with me. She resides in the North Pole near Santa. like Carrie Ann says, we live and gather, we reside somewheres. But I appreciate you, Wayne, and let me know if you want to speak up, man.
Is lethality. I've already said in previous videos that right-wing extremist violence has accounted for around 2/3 of all extremist fatalities in the United States. But what's even more interesting is that in 2018, the far right accounted for all extremist fatalities in the US. And that really goes over the two problems of right-wing extremist violence: high fatalities and their tendency to go after groups with characteristics they cannot change. Now, at this point, you've probably heard of left-wing extremist.
All right, gang, I know it's been a lot, so let me just get us back to where we're at. The point made here at the beginning is that when the right wing goes after groups, they go after people that cannot change whatever they're going at them for. So that is the
two problems of right-wing extremist violence: high fatalities and their tendency to go after groups with characteristics they cannot change. Now,
right. So this is the well, I punched you in the face. I shouldn't have done that, but it's really not the same as you then pulling out a gun and shooting me in the chest, right? And that is something that really needs to be discussed, especially because you tend to hear the both sides saying, yeah, well, maybe the MAGA nuts stormed the Capitol, but Antifa, 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 Antifa. From now on, if you start to understand what's going to happen in this video, you're going to be able to look them right in the face and say, all right, well, then let's talk about Antifa, right?
At this point, you've probably heard of left-wing extremist violence because of Antifa, and that seems to have turned a lot of people off from the left because they instantly equivocate their violence with the right wing, trying to make the claim that if right-wing violence is bad, then left-wing violence is just as bad, right? Well, not exactly. As I said before, all politics use violence in one way or another. It's the characteristics of said violence that are important. Firstly, let's go over fatalities. If we go to the graph I showed earlier, we can see that the left made up 3% of all fatalities in the same time period, meaning that left-wing extremist violence had a fatality rate of almost 24 times less than right-wing extremist violence. The other characteristic that makes left-wing violence different is who they go after. Unlike extremist right-wing violence, leftist violence goes after groups of people for characteristics they can change, such as bigoted or fascist rhetoric and placement on the capitalist hierarchy. Additionally, leftist violence is usually used as a defense against right-wing violence that is being used as an offense.
These are such huge points for me. That the left goes after things you can change. It is the real sort of, y'all know I've been going through it with my family, man, and it's just really important that people understand that people can change, man. They can change these things, but they often don't. And just the fact that being forced to defend yourself is not the same as attacking someone. And I cannot understand why people don't see the difference. What they do to me, and I'm gonna just fucking speak on it, because it happens to me in this community, on these channels, every day, is somebody comes the fuck at me, I say something, I respond, I stick up for myself, the story becomes I attack that person, next thing you know, there's some other fucking myth of, you know, how I went off on somebody, how and I'm like, oh yeah, y'all all must have just missed that person blatantly fucking harassing me asking them to stop, me clarifying over and over again, nobody coming to my aid, nobody sticking up for me. Y'all done forgot all that. Oh, but when I finally had enough and stood up for myself, nobody. Y'all don't think that feels a bit racist to people? I got another one for you. I want a lot of people to ask this. Do you not have an issue with me because I'm black, but you just think I'm too bipolar? Would you say that shit to Uncle Bobby? Because I'd pay to watch that. See how that goes. See what it's like when you tell a black man to his face while he's being harassed and gaslit, and he takes it, gives you his fucking Wednesday morning best professional voice, gives you grace that you haven't earned, that you don't deserve. And then people just keep going at you and disrespecting you, treating you like a fucking dog, ignoring the people that are coming at you, being friends with the people who are coming at you. You finally step to somebody's face and say, fuck you, you betrayed me. And then all of a sudden, about how Big Bad Jay, the big bad wolf huffed and puffed and blew the house down. If you don't think it's okay for me to be black and bipolar, you're a fucking bigot. And if you think my bipolar ass should sit around while people mock me, mistreat me, tell me I'm not affected by the racism in my community, you better be lucky I ain't half as bipolar as you fucking act like.
For instance, Antifa saved the lives of many people, including some religious figures, during Unite the Right in Charlottesville. Anyways, it's about time I make a part 2 to my video, Left versus Right-Wing Extremist Violence. Some of you didn't seem to like the first part. Now what I've said since 2019 has become more obvious recently in 2020, this is exactly what I will be going over in this video. In part 1, the main point I wanted to make was about how all politics are in some form about violence, and that the immensely lethal violence of the right does not compare to the more protective violence of the left. That video happened to be a bit more controversial than the other content I was uploading at the time, which I assume is because it was harder for people to believe my points back in 2019 when I posted the video. Now being in the 2020s, the decade where all the quiet things are said out loud, I'd like to highlight the rhetoric of the far right as of recent that has made my points in part 1 just that much more obvious. If it was hard for people to believe that the far right could be more lethal than the far left, I think it is only appropriate that we go over what the different sides think about violence. You see, when a right-winger has access to a means for violence, their thoughts usually tend to veer towards fantasies of vigilantism and killing their political opponents. This has become very obvious in an infamous Turning Point USA convention where one of the viewers asked a pretty ballsy question of the presenter, Charlie Kirk.
But I want to ask you something a little bit out of the ordinary, so prepare yourself. At this point, we're living under a corporate and medical fascism. This is tyranny. When do we get to use the guns? No, and I'm not, that's not a joke. I'm not saying it.
Also, notice how we were living under corporate and medical fascism because we were trying to save lives from a pandemic. Anybody who's dumb enough to act like these people didn't know exactly what was happening at the time. Anybody wants to tell me about how misinformed these people were and they didn't know any better, they really believed, you better take that shit somewhere else. Congratulations, you have just earned yourself a primo seat at the kids' table over there, because over here, grown folks are talking. These people always know exactly what they're doing. The only person that doesn't know exactly what they're doing is the dumbasses who buy into this shit. They know what a pandemic is. They know what fucking viruses are. They knew COVID was real. They knew people were dying. They knew they needed to mask. They knew they needed to social distance. They still know they need to mask, wear social distance, and get a vaccine. They're agents of chaos. And all they got to do to continue to be agents of chaos is pretend not to be when they're around you. This is what MLK was talking about. The white moderates, the softies, the centrists, the people who don't identify as a progressive, the people who don't self-identify as an ally, because they woke. They're not woke. They don't want to be accused of being woke. Y'all are some fucking fools.
Like that, I mean, literally, where's the line? How many elections are they going to steal before we kill these people? So, no.
Now, Charlie Kirk walks us back. Obviously, as a political grifter, he has to, or else he threatens legal action or getting on a government watch list or some shit like that. Notice, however, the way he walks us back, saying that aggression is something the left wants right-wingers to do to make them look bad. I find this point absolutely hilarious, because what's really happening is entirely contrary to this point. It is not the left trying to agitate the right to make them look bad. Moreover, the recent politics of the right has been formed in a way to get the right wing angry. They're more politically invested that way, and when they're more politically invested, they play very neatly into the hands of grifters who want to make money or gain power off of the QAnon movement, the far right, the 3%ers, etc., etc. Now, I don't personally believe that Charlie Kirk pushes violence as much as some of his other right-wing counterparts, but they do play on the same team, and he's doing public damage control in this interview. His purpose, at least at that moment, was to clean up his colleague's mess. Unsuccessfully, of course. Nobody, not that I know of, is buying his backtracking rhetoric in that clip. So, what do I mean when I say the far right has been pushing a more aggressive and anger-inducing agenda? Well, firstly, there was the focus on the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. I'm not going to go over the exact details for the sake of brevity, but Kyle Rittenhouse was a teenager who'd killed multiple people with a rifle he brought over state lines, claiming self-defense being the reason for his murder. A lot of the right at the time was watching the case intently, hiding behind the thin veneer of being pro-Second Amendment, which I imagine some believed in good faith, but considering what I've seen of the far right's violence, this smelled more like coded language given to them by more extreme right-wingers to develop a good faith-sounding argument to cover for Rittenhouse's activities.
And a lot of y'all are not recognizing the coded language that's happening in our community. Y'all have become so enculturated in this YouTube culture that you don't recognize it. Like, good faith interlocutor. Are there good faith interlocutors? Sure. Is it relevant to be a good faith interlocutor? Yeah, when you're dealing with a good faith interlocutor, rarely worth having a conversation about. Whoa, stupid whore energy coming through with the donations for the moving fund. Appreciate you. Yeah, for those that don't know, I'm getting kicked out of my house. I have less than 3 weeks to find a new place. I have no idea where I'm going to go and how I'm going to get there. I don't have a vehicle. It's just the sky's falling. But it's all right. We're just going to keep the show rolling. But thank you so much, sweetheart. It could not come at a better time. Why? It's no real reason. It's, or at least with me, I think it's the property owner is reclaiming the property from the property management company. And the state law is that if you live in a place on a lease and you continue to stay there after your lease expires, your lease automatically becomes month to month, which was great for me because I didn't really know how long I was going to be here, if I was going to go to Minnesota, like what's the deal. So I've just been living here month to month, but that does mean that when the owner of the property wants the property back, all they have to do is like give me 30 days notice. And you know, it's like I'm not on a lease or anything, so they don't have to like wait for it to expire or anything. So, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I appreciate the concern. It's just a life event, right? And got to get a game plan together and figure out how we're going to pull this thing off. But yeah, I greatly appreciate the contribution, and you know, also just kind of I want people to know what's going on. Y'all know you know, we're definitely not trying to you know, harp on dramas that have been happening, but one of the things that I think is useful to mention because I mentioned that, and because I talked so much about Gather earlier, is that a lot of reflecting that I've been doing in the last couple of weeks has been about what takes place on screen, on camera, and what takes place off camera. And one of the great things about having our co-work space and Gather and spending so much time in there socializing offline is you know, the people that are in Gather, and I'm not giving an exhaustive list. I'm just mentioning a couple names. Hope nobody feels left off or disrespected. But, you know, just thinking about some of, say, the people that's been affected by what's been going on. Let's take a Stephanie, a Bree, a Lena, a Maya, a Wayne, you know, people like that. These are not just my YouTube friends, as I said, they're my friends, but they're also at this point my coworkers. And so part of what I have been learning myself through all of this is, like Uncle Bobby says, there's a choice and then there's the 5 minutes after. There's a stream, and then there's the aftermath of the stream. And when these people become your friends and your coworkers, you don't see what happens online and on social media. You see the hurt, the pain, the devastation, and from the lost productivity, speaking from a work perspective. And when you see that, and then you realize it just, people are waking up to it every day, and it's nonstop. You realize we got to start thinking through this stuff a little bit more intentionally, at least from my perspective. And what's been very difficult for a lot of us the last couple weeks, and this is where it ties into me moving, because that's just one example of things that's going on with me. Like, y'all know, I had the big project due. I had a fire in my house. I've had additional fallings out with my mother and my family. I literally don't know if I'm ever gonna speak to my mom again. But because I'm moving, you know, when you move, you talk to your family about it. You got to get help from the family. Going through this process with my dad always requires going through a process with my mom's side of the family. So I got to deal with my mom and her side of the family, knowing it wasn't going to be productive, but because I need my dad and other people in my support system to know that I tried and I went through that process. My mom reached out to me after we haven't been talking for a while, after she had originally promised to help me move when I graduated. Because I graduated, I just was like, hey, like, I'm not moving right now because of COVID. You know, we haven't been talking for a while. She reaches out telling me she's been thinking about me. And then I'm like, hey, I really need help right now. But she's totally unwilling to help me all of a sudden. So I'm not trying to throw a pity party. I just want to use these as a few very, very, very real examples right now of things that go on in real people's lives. So when people say, hey, this wasn't exactly the best time for the type of traumatic social media, YouTube couple weeks we've been having in this community, this is just an example of that. And I hope people start to think about that, right? I don't care who it is. I don't care whose channel it is. I don't care if it's just somebody in the chat. When at all possible, especially with people you do care about, you do have some concern for, you do consider a part of your life, consider that what you see on screen or in the chat is just the tip of a very large iceberg of what may or may not actually be going on in that person's life. And the learning experience for us as a community is that we went through all this shit together. Day in, day out. What the fuck happened last night? Oh my God, we can't even get through what happened last night because now there's something else happening today, and all the weeping and the crying and all of this shit. So I've seen it from myself and everybody, and that's a real big takeaway this week, y'all. We're real people. We're going through a lot of shit. We're happy to be in this community. We love our friends. We're happy to be called upon by our allies who are anxious at the opportunity to speak with us and not for us, who call upon us to educate because they trust us to speak from our lived experience in a way that is effective and responsible. But y'all just got to understand, I got to take care of my people. My people are hurting, including myself. And I've learned a lot. And my priority is protecting myself, protecting my friends, and making sure we get back to being productive. I just told y'all details about me, but let me just be clear. Every person I'm telling y'all about is going through shit right now, okay? They're all going through real shit right now. Shit I'm not gonna tell you because I don't mind telling you my business, but I'm not gonna tell you theirs. But right now we are focused on getting back to being productive, getting back into groove, getting back into being creative, getting through our hard times, getting through our transitions, and then with whatever we have left, we're happy to give this community whatever we can. But appreciate y'all for letting me share.
House was eventually
and Stupid Heart Energy. Thank you so much for the donation, and thanks even more for prompting an opportunity for me to speak to this very real concern, because we're all learning how to take care of each other better.
Found innocent on all charges, users on the right-wing forum thedonald.win found it as a precedent to kill without consequences. Meanwhile, the Proud Boys called for stacking up bodies like cordwood after the verdict. There were even right-wingers outside a courthouse cosplaying as Rittenhouse not too long after the verdict as well. These violent actions are not outliers provoked by the ruling, though. If anything, they are the norm. One far-right group called the 3%ers was infiltrated by a journalist who reported that they were asked if they would be willing to kill people from Antifa and BLM in their intake interview. While there are infiltrators and plenty of evidence to prove these groups are preparing to commit premeditated murder, don't hold your breath in regards to these groups being cracked down on by American law enforcement, as they too are in on the violence. One report from NPR claims that the police have been found on the rosters of a far-right group called the Oath Keepers. I also mentioned in my video on police that they've been investigated in the past by the FBI for white nationalists infiltrating their ranks, whom they've nicknamed Ghost Skins. Clearly, their efforts have not had an effect on the clear far-right biases of the police in America. Now, this kind of violence isn't just exclusive to America. In Canada, a QAnon influencer, Romana Didulo, has declared herself as the Queen of Canada, instructing her 70,000 followers to go duck hunting, which is code meaning healthcare workers, politicians, and journalists. The groups are either doing some serious LARPing or are getting more serious about their agenda, with followers embracing a flag to symbolize their queen, along with photos of firearms being shared. Some followers even claiming they would be more than happy to quarter these duck hunters. I've focused a lot on the right here, but I imagine that leaves some people asking, what has the radical left done during these times? Surely they can't be that tame, right? Well, the largest left-wing firearms organization, the Socialist Rifle Association, has a subreddit where a particular post made after the Rittenhouse verdict was embraced quite heavily. The post said, "We are not a militia," which is quite the opposite of the right's reaction to this verdict. Many on this SRA subreddit are claiming that, while they did get guns after this verdict, it was for self-defense as they feel more threatened by the rise of far-right extremism. Keep this in mind. When the left gets firearms, it's for protective force. When the right gets firearms, it's for offensive force. Many leftists in these recent years have been talking about not only past revolutions, but what the patterns of revolution are. Since America...
All right, hang on. We're in the middle of this last segment, so go ahead, Steph. I think this is a good point to pause, just because there's such an important point about the left, that need to protect yourself. And again, gang, it's bigger than just talking about direct violence, who's got the guns and who's using them. It's anything. Who's using, like I said, aggressive language. Think about it in this community. Who is, timing out people or creating echo chambers, right? If you're in a space where you are throwing marginalized people under the bus or saying problematic things, people are pushing back on that, and then you're, banning and blocking and all this other stuff, well, that could be considered very problematic. Because in your space, people are attacking people. They're attacking marginalized groups or doing weird stuff or being insensitive, right? Sure, they've got the right to troll or antagonize or be assholes, whatever they want to do. But if you're doing all that against marginalized people, then yeah, they're gonna feel attacked. And if you're blocking people who are pushing back on that, then yeah, that's fucking problematic. But if you're in a stream and you're doing something like we're doing, talking about a controversial issue, but you're just trying to bring some perspective to it and get into the dialogue about it, and all of a sudden people start showing up and saying bigoted things or doing bigoted things, we start banning or blocking people or timing them out. People are like, yeah, well, you're being aggressive and you're creating an echo chamber and look at how you moderate people and all. It's like, yeah, but we're being defensive, right? We have people who are coming at us on some bullshit and harassing us in our own space. That's totally different than giving us, reasonable critique to our approach. And when we realize that they're bad faith actors, we defensively toss them the fuck out of the goddamn channel. What seems to be the problem? So people got to stop both sidesing everything. Because if you think, well, both sides do it. I'm sorry, do you have something to add? Right, because both sides do it is just it's a talking point. It is not, you're not adding anything to the conversation. I don't know if Wayne said, but I think he may have did, but Wayne speaks to this a lot. People just take credit for these stances and takes that they make that don't add anything. But Steph, did you want to jump in here?
Sure. There's a lot. There's a lot to talk about here. There's a lot to talk about as far as grievance politics is concerned.
Yeah, take your time. Also, we got your VR cam, Steph. I don't know if you have a...
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on.
It's not a big deal, but I just wanted to let you know, because you have given some of your best performances only to be hidden from us when you didn't intend to be.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. I can hear you great.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, give me just a sec here.
Take your time. No worries. Also, hi, Lena.
Yeah, sorry for the technical issues here. You caught me unawares.
No, nobody. We're not concerned at all, Steph. No worries. No rush. No big deal. I'll roll a couple minutes of tape while you work on that. No worries.
It has become an unstable tinderbox waiting to be lit. People are anticipating more systematically changing and radical action to be on the horizon. And I want to end you with this. America has had a growing population of people who have become disillusioned with the electoral system in this country. I can't blame them. They've realized more over time that this country is a de facto aristocracy. However, this loss of faith within the two-party system has only temporarily led people to depressive inaction. It has instead birthed the likes of many vigilantes. The high-stakes events of the Rittenhouse trial, the modern BLM movement, the COVID pandemic, and so on have led for the match of vigilantism to be lit. It will soon touch the tinderbox that is America, and from there, we have some very interesting events to witness unfold.
Yeah, so anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that. And one of the things I was just going to say real quickly that I've been thinking about recently is I hope people realize that history is always happening. We're making history. And, I feel like there's so many ways where even if I could have what I would consider to be sort of a reasonable conversation with a lot of Black Christians, I would dare to lay it out in a way as to suggest a reimagining of the civil rights struggle in 23 in modern times in a way that does not permit the church to play a central role in terms of the ideation and the language, right? A properly secular one. Not to say that we would not want all people of faith to participate. Let's be very clear. When it comes to the rubber meets the road issue, y'all know me. I ain't trying to break bread with Christians just to break bread with Christians at all, okay? But when it comes to sitting down at the table, because we're here to negotiate, how to better address queer issues, racism, misogyny, whatever the civil rights issue of the times might be. Oh, everybody's at this table. Everybody's at this table, and I'm cooking for everybody. I'm making sure everybody's got a seat. I'm making sure everybody's comfortable. So let's be very clear. My atheist ass is all about that interfaith coexist stuff when it comes to ensuring that people have the rights. But I would not want anybody's faith at the core of it. The reason I'm mentioning this real quickly is because I wish I could have the chat with my family, because if they were willing to reimagine the civil rights struggle currently, I think there would be the potential for them to understand that we are still dealing with these struggles right now in a way that they would be able to hopefully see how religious images, the religious organizations can be potentially problematic. And so what I feel like is, being a black man about the civil rights and the civil rights of black people in particular, in 2023 implies a rejection of white Jesus, right? In a way that I don't resent the prior era for negotiating with white allies in the way that was best for them at the time. Where am I going with all of this? It would be important for me for them to see examples of bigotry today. What comes to me is, I was not told to sit in the back of the bus decades ago in a land dominated by some historical racism, that a civil rights struggle resolved to a sense of peace where racism is, quote, not that big of a problem, as you may have noticed someone said to my face recently. I was told to sit in the back of the bus less than 72 hours ago. Stephanie was told that trans vaginas look like dog cunts very recently. Now, I'm literally not saying that to, bring up old hash and rehash any of this. It has nothing to do. It happened, but that's the point, right? I say it to emphasize to our friends.
Let's not get into how it happened.
Yeah, it happened. It happened. And the point I'm trying to make to people is just that we are making history now. We need to. I've literally been realizing through this video, through this conversation, through our discussions with Dr. King, we need to reactivate the civil rights struggle movement. I'm not saying people are not working and fighting for civil rights and being active and all that, but we need to re-engage the organized language and conscious national effort of a civil rights struggle that needs to happen not in the 60s, but in 2023 and going forward, because I'm still being told to sit in the back of the bus, and she's still being told what she's been told, right? And so, Steph, I just want to put everybody on notice that even as you are out there in your life, out in the real world or the real digital world, do not act like the civil rights issues is a struggle we already won because of our heroes, Dr. King. They simply serve as an inspiration to the Black history, queer history, all the other women, everybody's history that we are making today. All right, now I'm gonna shut up and let the pretty lady talk.
Yeah, again, a lot to unpack here. And I think that your observation that we're making history, in order to make that history, it's a good idea to remember history a little bit. The Lavender Scare was part of national feelings of insecurity and what's next after World War II. It got going in the early 50s, like 3 years before I was born, in 1950. Really, it started being huge and a real thing on the political scene, much like the actions against the trans community are today. So in some ways, history repeats itself. And I'll just read the first paragraph of the wiki on it, which is pretty good, actually. Lavender Scare was a moral panic. Boy, that's something new in it. About homosexual people in the United States government, which led to their mass dismissal from government service. In other words, real shit, not sticks and stones, not name calling, real shit. People's lives ruined. Which led to their mass dismissal from government service during the mid-20th century. It contributed to and paralleled the anti-communist campaign, which is known as McCarthyism and the Second Red Scare. Gay men and lesbians were said to be national security risks and communist sympathizers, which led to the call to remove them from state employment. It was thought that gay people were more susceptible to being manipulated, which could pose a threat to the country. Lesbians were at less risk of persecution than gay men, but some lesbians were interrogated or lost their jobs. This is in the United States. In the United Kingdom, quite famously, a victim of the Lavender Scare was Alan Turing, the man who broke the Enigma code.
Okay, go ahead, continue. Yeah.
The man who broke the Enigma code.
Yes, and there's a movie about him. Correct. I can't think of the name of that movie, but go ahead, Steph.
The man who broke the Enigma code, which was huge in the ability of the Allied forces to win the war against Nazi Germany and Japan.
I'd argue it's the textbook example of how intelligence, wins the war rather than the bombs, right?
Yeah. I mean, Alan Turing is considered the father of artificial intelligence. So when you use Chat GPT, think of Alan Turing.
Yes.
The Turing test. How do you know when a machine has become as intelligent as it has become an intelligence, a conscious intelligence?
Yes.
The Turing test.
Yes, it's really important actually because the digital organisms that we use are Turing complete, right? And that is important because it means that the programs we evolve are capable of, that inherent capacity to, solve anything we could throw at them that could potentially be solved. And that's what that Turing test is all about, right? So yeah. Go ahead.
Alan Turing was gay. And because of, the issues raised in the framed by the first paragraph that I just read, was compelled by the British government. He was outed as queer, and he was compelled by the British government to undergo a program of what I guess you would call conversion therapy. And this was medicalized conversion therapy. What the therapy involved was feeding him doses of spironolactone and estrogen. In other words, the British government tried to trans Alan Turing.
Yeah, it's like a medical castration, I think. Right?
Medical castration, except that the procedures they used were literally the government forcing Alan Turing to run on estrogen.
It's crazy. Just
Alan Turing, as a result of that medical, at least in some part, as a result of that medical intervention against his will, committed suicide. That's the Lavender Scare. It was done to one of the most brilliant scientists and legit war heroes that Britain ever had.
Yeah, and so many others, right? And even here, yeah, it's just crazy.
So the Lavender Scare resulted in the dismissal in the early 50s of during the Truman administration of 400 plus homosexuals who are believed to pose a security risk by virtue of their being gay. Mostly men, 2 lesbians. Joe McCarthy himself, there's a quote in here that's unbelievable.
Oh, Steph, remember that debate too? We were watching a debate and that guy went to the other dude. He was like, "You queer."
Yes, well, yeah, that was William F. Buckley and forget who.
Yeah, that was
Orbital.
Yeah, like you know, it was sort of almost like a.
So
go ahead. It doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah, Joe, good old Joe, sweet guy, killed himself being an alcoholic. Anyway, Joe McCarthy hired, in order to really sort out the queers in the United States government, hired Roy Cohn.
Damn.
Roy Cohn. Gee, ever heard that name before?
Yes.
Donald J. Trump hired Roy Cohn as his lawyer. It's his favorite lawyer before Michael Cohen. Where's my Roy Cohn? Roy Cohn was gay.
Damn.
Closeted gay man.
Wow.
That committee worked with J. Edgar Hoover.
Oh no.
Who was gay.
That explains so much.
And a cross-dresser.
This explains so much.
And they went after every single gay person, terrorized gay people. Gay people couldn't get in. Joe McCarthy said this: if you want to be against McCarthy, boys, you've either got to be a communist or a cocksucker.
Holy crap.
So yeah, let's remember history. Let's remember what we were fighting against. Let's remember what making America great again means.
Right.
Making America great again means Roy Cohn,
Right.
J. Edgar Hoover, Joe McCarthy.
Right.
What did the FBI do to Martin Luther King?
Right. Talk about a dog whistle we don't recognize every day.
What did the FBI do to the people who marched against the war in Vietnam, warned against it?
Right.
They were often accused of being homosexuals and escorted to the door.
Yes. And I want to talk about the tolerance of the persistence of symbols. We lose the war every time because the other side has long figured out how to win the battle of attrition. And so what happens is when something becomes problematic, we have it out, and then they double down, and eventually we just move on to something else. So MAG is a perfect example, because when he first started with that Make America Great Again, people were up in arms because people recognized the dog whistle. When was America great?
Well, this was always my favorite. Could you name a specific period in which America was great? Like, which decade would you like to go back to, right? Because it'd always be like, you know, for women and people of color, like, we're not saying things are great now, but there's definitely no fucking period of the past we think of as great enough to be going back to. And so people did really recognize it. But what happened? People doubled down on the bullshit. Well, it's just our political expression and our red hats. And here we are all these years later, and nobody says shit when you see somebody walking down the street with the red Make America Great Again hat, because, again, it was a dog whistle. People had up in arms about it. Then they won a battle of attrition. Just like, you know, this whole thing was all about a thing, you know, like a dumbass coon avatar or whatever. People started making a whole bunch more in solidarity with the fucking bigots, right? And yeah, even now that people have got educated about the dog whistle, ain't nobody gonna actually say or do anything about it. And the net result is we have a whole fuck ton more raccoon avatars, not less, right? And that's this fucking sad part. And that's what I mean about the persistence of symbols in all of this, right? Like that's crazy to me.
Just couple of quick things. McCarthy spoke on the Senate floor about two individual people, Case 14 and Case 62, as communists who are unsafe risks. This is the linkage between politics and using being queer as, you know, a thing.
Absolutely. Steph, there's something... Oh, okay, got it.
I just want to finish this
No,
thought.
no, absolutely. I just had something else. I don't forget it. But you have the floor. It's totally good.
He said a top intelligence official had told him, quote, every communist is twisted mentally or physically. And he implied that these people were vulnerable to recruitment by communists because of their peculiar mental twists of homosexuality. This is how deep this ran. This is the highest levels of the United States government. And we're seeing it in state and 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 state today about people like me. Due to the image of the State Department now being tainted with homosexuality, many male employees became self-conscious about the possibility of being perceived as homosexual. They often refused to be seen in pairs and made statements confirming their heterosexuality when introducing themselves. For example, one unmarried employee often said at parties, "Hi, I'm so-and-so." One unnamed employee, "Hi, I'm so-and-so. I work for the State Department. I'm married and I have 3 children." This is how bad it was. It's how bad they want to make it again, because that was great.
Exactly. And I'm thinking about, too, and again, this is all just real-time reflection. Part of the problem is I need people that are about this to be serious about the state of play. Let's look up and keep track of the scoreboard. We're not dealing with the situation where things have gotten so much better that, yeah, okay, there might be some trolls who do a little bit of dog whistling on the internet, and yeah, all right, let's push back against them, and let's call it a day, because things are looking up. Rather, what you're reflecting on is, look at these statements coming from the highest level of government. All right, well, we're dealing with a situation where the dog whistler in chief, right, literally just started the griftiest of the McGrifty of MAGA movements, of a twice impeached man who just led a goddamn insurrection. He's just been charged with 34 felony counts and a whole bunch more coming, and he's still the goddamn leading presidential candidate to be the next President of the United States of America. I always ask people a simple question when they express the horrors of the Trump administration. And don't y'all forget this question, especially not this year and next. Which Trump administration are you referring to? The last one or the next one? I just got to be clear. Go ahead, Steph. But you know what I'm saying? This is still at the highest levels of government. It still just started the most weaponized political movement ever right now. It's a bunch of MAGA hats and y'all family that y'all really not looking to Thanksgiving dinner with. Let's just be honest about the state of play. What's scary to marginalized people is this is America. America promotes these people, makes them our bosses, makes them our landlords, makes them our fucking presidents.
In 1953, I'm just going to get to how long this lasted. In 1953, President Eisenhower signed Executive Order 10450, which set security standards for federal employment and banned homosexuals from working in the federal government, which came back to bite him in the ass because during the Vietnam War, people would say, I'm queer, I can't serve. Which is funny.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
The restrictions set in place were cause for hundreds of gay people to be forcibly outed and fired from the State Department. Also, was the cause for the firing of approximately 5,000 gay people from federal employment, including private contractors and military personnel. Not only did the victims lose their jobs, but they were also forced out of the closet and thrust into the public eye as lesbian or gay. And believe me, in the 50s, you didn't want to do that. You didn't want to be out of the closet. Or 60s, for that matter. I mean, it was brave to be out.
Absolutely, still is.
And so there was a whole subculture built up around the whole thing.
Steph, I had the most perverse...
Now wait, I just want to say at the end, just to put a cherry on the top, it wasn't until 1973. So 1953, for 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
This policy was official policy of the United States government. 20 years, through Eisenhower, through Kennedy, through Johnson, through Nixon. 4 presidents. Now you can't tell me that all those 4 people didn't had no gay people. You can't tell me that the same number of people that know gay people today didn't know them then. Did they give a fuck? No, they didn't give a fuck.
Yes, and that's
give a fuck.
Absolutely.
And the condition of your being gay was to keep fucking quiet about it.
Absolutely.
And stay the fuck in the closet. And you get a wink and a nod from your family. You get a wink and a nod from society. There was a deacon in my church that when I was before I sort of entirely backed away from everything, decided to straighten up, fly right, and pretend I was a man, and get married, and for all appearances and all that other bullshit.
Give it the last go,
I was hanging around. I was going to gay bars. I saw a deacon in my church. We looked at each other, black guy. We looked at each other, said, and went on our way.
Damn.
This is what these motherfuckers are playing with when they pull out the semiotics, they pull out the symbology.
Right. Absolutely.
Of those days, those times, those issues, that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And we got to do a whole
and use it to either provoke, or they actually believe that shit. I think many people think these things are a joke, and they just think they're being edgy.
Right.
But that edginess gives the people, if they're not directly allied with things they really don't agree with, but it's funny.
Right. Right.
But it gives the bigots permission to use it and say, see,
Right.
it's really okay.
Absolutely.
It's bullshit.
Absolutely.
Anyway, thanks for asking me on. I'm sure you didn't expect this.
No,
I
no,
didn't
I
either.
love it. I love it. This is great.
But
Steph, you're always Steph,
you got
your
it.
family. I want us to do a whole stream on the semiotics, because we should do that, and we should co-stream it if you'd like, so that it can be on your channel if that's something that interests you. But there's a couple things I wanted to ask you in relation to all of this. One of them is that, quick plug for Gather. Hey, also, Stacy's here. I'm so glad to see Stacy here. Stacy, I have this thing where when content creators that I admire come into my channel, I like to let them enjoy themselves, and I don't want to single them out, because we're all YouTubers, we're all part of this community, and I want people just to be able to come and hang out here. But I got to get you on my channel, girl. We trying to do things. We trying to make moves out here. And eventually my mods and people are going to be yelling at me like, did you know Stacey was in the chat? Did you know Stacey was in the chat? Did you know Stacey was in the chat? When are you going to do some Stacey? When are you going to do some Stacey? When are you going to do some Stacey? Why are you not trying to do Stacey? Jay, you really need to collaborate. But look, Stacey, we really do need to collaborate at some point. Pop in the Discord. Hit me up, Pocket Locker 86 everywhere. Please get back to enjoying yourself in your life. But I'd be derelict of duty if I didn't invite you to do something at some point if you'd like. But Steph, so quick plug for Gather. We watch all the shows, the HBO, the premium content. It's always super fun. And one of the things that has been super enlightening for me lately is we've been watching The Deuce, right? And The Deuce is sort of revisiting the refers to a particular place in Manhattan where there was a lot of prostitution, and then kind of went into porn and that whole evolution.
It's a
but
great show.
Check it out on HBO Max. I don't want to ruin it, but it does touch on the AIDS crisis. And what strikes me now is there's all of this talk around, in particular, trans issues and medical bills and denying affirming care or whatever medical and personal needs people may have. And it strikes me, as we've been watching the show and you've been, sharing more from your experience and your own, expertise and understanding of things, how much tone deaf we seem. Like we're like, it's almost like we're like, what? They're going after particular communities' medical care? I don't know how to respond to that. There's no recent context of this happening. I don't know, right? And we're watching this you kind of reliving the early AIDS days a little bit, and you're going, motherfuckers, this just happened. In historical terms, this just happened yesterday. It's called AIDS. So can you just give us a little bit of how I'm sure disappointing it must be that with all these trans medical issues and all these bills, it's 2023 and we're acting like we didn't learn anything from the AIDS crisis.
We are a really strangely forgetful bunch. It's really amazing how much we've forgotten. Anyway, if anybody wants to see a real great book on the Lavender Scare, it's the intersection between the politics and the Red Scare and all of that stuff and the culture of the whole thing. It's Robert K. Johnson's got a book called It's called The Lavender Scare. And you can pick up a copy. It came out in, I think, 2004 or something. I put a link in the chat, but Jay doesn't trust me enough to be moderating his.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, of course. Let me go. I'm like one of those fortunate people. I have a lot of mods, and I actually do streams sometimes where it's almost all mods sometimes. But no, I certainly should make you a mod. Sorry about that stuff. But please continue.
No, I'm done. I just wanted to throw that in. I've got nothing else to contribute.
There's Stephanie Holmes. I can go ahead and make you a mod. But yeah, it's really sad. And part of the I don't think I'm giving too much away from the actual show, but there's a protest that happens, and people are basically saying the protest cry is fight AIDS, not gays. And I'm sitting here going, it's just so crazy that this is what people were dealing with, y'all. Just watching death all around them and having to fight to be recognized as human and raising awareness that this disease was the problem, not the people who were disproportionately being impacted by it. And there was so much cost to everyone because in our not necessarily everybody hating that particular group, but not being fully sensitive and conscious to the way prejudice against that particular group was forcing everybody to overlook the issues, everybody was dying. Because AIDS doesn't care if you're gay or not. AIDS doesn't care if the societal pressures against homosexuality cause you to build and raise a family with a partner of of whatever sex or gender your partner might be, right? Or whatever other right? Like everybody suffered and died so needlessly, all groups. Because it took us so much longer to understand the real issues because we just didn't care enough about the people we saw as the faces of who it really affects. So it's just I'm really glad that Stephanie was here to talk a little bit about that. Because it is so important that we understand, in the wider context of today's show, that, the big difference between right-wing violence, aggression, tactics, or whatever they need to do to meet their ends, and whatever us over here on the left need to do for our ends, the difference that was brought out in the video, in addition to the sheer lopsidedness, right? Most of the violence comes from the right. It just does. Those are just the facts. Don't forget, right-wingers, facts don't care about your feelings. Y'all are responsible for most of the violence. Own it, baby. There's also the lethality. We often are violent. The left is often violent in a way that is not lethal or is not acted out. It could be property, it could just be minor stuff, or whatever it is. But the big thing is that it's always coming from the right aggressively. Not always, but that's one of the big differences, right? Is that right-wing violence is typically Offensive, left-wing violence is typically defensive. And then the huge difference as to who the targets are, the left goes after the right for things they can change. The right goes after the left for things they cannot. And it usually starts with the racial minorities. And then it also, goes after the queer community. And so it's really important to, in that regard, like, stay woke, because, they are after us. And I want to be clear, I'm not actually talking about violence. That was the topic of the video. I don't encourage violence in any way, shape, or form from anyone on any side. But sort of casting it in a broader spectrum of aggression and the need to sometimes, do things against other people. Like I said, even as an example of blocking people from your chat or filtering who you have on your channel, right? There's a big difference between, I'm blocking people because, there's people on the panel that are attacking a particular group. There's pushback. I don't want to deal with the pushback. I'm going to block the people who are pushing back on the bigots who are attacking people. Well, yeah, that's fucked up. But if you're having a conversation and somebody comes to antagonize marginalized people and you moderate them, well, that's defensive. So, important things to keep in mind. I'm going to wrap it up. Try to get some food or get situated for the evening, have some fun gaming. Please do check out the link in the description. Come check us out and gather. That's where we'll be. Hoping to also get back to making fun content on the Casino, Arcade, and Theater channel. Please subscribe to that channel. Links in the description. You can also subscribe to Hunter Biden's laptops if you'd like. I may start doing stuff on that channel too, but I'm definitely going to start doing stuff on the Casino. So go ahead, give the Casino a sub. Otherwise, I appreciate y'all. Come link up with us and gather. Appreciate everybody for watching. Thank y'all all so much. I want to thank Stupid Horror Energy again for the big tip. Always appreciated. And we'll see you next time. Said I'm gone. Poof.
Zach? Why she wanna leave me alone? Saying all I do is wrong. No rights when they been left turns. Playing that she gotta let it burn. Saying that the hell's not a home. Sunshine cause you heard it all before. Sometimes she don't wanna be alone. Most times she don't want me gone. She don't know I try my all. She don't know I sprung in the summer, but I'm going in the winter, so we good to the fall. Remember how I told you I get it and I win. Now I'm got it, you ain't answer my call. Wonder if I've been moving too strong. Maybe I just been moving too boss. Really hate when the feeling get lost. Nowadays she just dodge my calls. In the game throwing laws like Paul. Young legend Miss John like Wall. And I wish you never met like Carl. Dick game lay it down like law. Made plans but you canceled them all. I was just trying to splurge in the mall. Now I'm home stacking bread till you call. It's time to roll. She tryna slide. We smoking Zah. Stop acting shy. Cause you a demon when I get between your thighs, girl. You like my rib, you know I need you by my side, girl. It's time to roll. She tryna ride. We smoking. Stop acting shy. Cause you a demon when I get between your thighs, girl. You like my rib, you know I need you by my side, girl.
Be smoking that side. I'm tryna get high. She said that she not ready for love, stop wasting my time. I got demons in my closet, I can't hide. I did all my X is wrong, they wish I died. Damn, I tried. They won't believe me when I say this. Oh my God, what a blessing. Hello Phoenix, that's my twin. I told these hoes they won't get my heart again, not again. Cause they were missing when I needed just a friend.
They were missing, yeah, they all were missing. They don't want no smoke, they hit the blunt and started tripping. My daughter about to be 5, I ain't got no time to be bitching. I'm still reminiscing, we ain't had no food in the kitchen. I gotta go stack. I'm waiting, know I'm heading, but I'm going up. I hit the side, now your sack feel like I'm throwing up. And I just took another perk, cause one wasn't enough. Yeah.
It's time to roll. She tryna slide. We smoking out. Stop acting shy. Cause you a demon when I get between your thighs, girl. You like my rhythm, you know I need you by my side, girl. It's time to roll. She tryna